basically, we're all here, and there's a reason you're just looking
Ah,
at this simple, simple blue screen that just says Cosmotronic on it, nothing fancy, nothing else. The reason why is because, as everyone knows, we've had the NDA lift, right, guys?
really? I didn't notice.
Well, we've had the WildStar NDA lift, and I thought it was an appropriate time for us to reveal our real identities on the show. Kind of like, when you have a certain number of favorites, followers, or what have you, you reveal yourselves. And it took us a little bit of time, but we finally got all the pictures together. Unfortunately, Kite Dream is not joining us today, so you're not going to see her reveal just yet. But for now, I reveal to you the real identities of your 3 current Cosmotronic hosts. So, while I wait for it to catch up and for Mizpah to actually see what we've done to him, Gazzy knows what I've done.
This is not fair. I'm ill.
I think it's perfectly ill. I definitely do feel a lot better, Stout Pint, thank you. I don't sound like Christian Bale trying to be Batman, although I definitely don't have the energy I normally have. So, but yes, hi, I'm Lopzilla. We have Gazzy. Go ahead, Gazzy, introduce yourself.
So, yeah, this thing that happened, I maintain that it is a pleasing coincidence, if you say that. But I found this battleground vendor in Feral Plane Collective called Gaz the Tricky, and he's even got goggles like the glasses that I wear and bad teeth like British are supposed to have and stuff. So it could be, but yeah.
And now, Ms., you should have had enough time to see yourself.
Yes.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, apparently something has gone wrong with the cloning process, because although I seem to be a protostar, I seem to have... something's gone wrong in that cloning, clearly. But hey, what more can I possibly say? Let's just find the clones that have got this bug, kill them all, and produce some more, because that would make life much easier than feeling how I feel right now. And yes, hello, Sir Jaeger. I'm afraid not.
Yes. And by the way, Adams, congratulations on making it to the last boss in Skullcano last night. He was watching me stream playing while he was working on going through Skullcano, which was really a lovely blessing. And yes, hello to you, Zidness. Hello, Avid Guru. Hello, Drostiblood Suliko. Hello to Harsey. Hello to everybody. Zimstyle, word up, yo. And now that we have properly unveiled who we really are in the Cosmotronic, I now present you with what is supposed to be the start of Cosmotronic. Go ahead. You can talk now.
I can talk now. I was waiting for video stuff on the screen and, flashes and, I don't know, whatever was supposed to happen next. Hello, good evening, good afternoon, abiento, herring, other random words inserted here for no purpose whatsoever. For those of you that can interpret Croak, the official language I seem to be speaking this evening, welcome to Cosmotronic, but as usual, it's not just myself croaking away. We have a Gazimoff.
Yes, apart from the fact that I have not been consuming frog, because I am not a bit croaky.
I hear it tastes just like chicken. However, we also have Pseudo.
Hello.
La Lop.
Yes, it's Lapzilla, also known as Mutezilla and a variety of other things, because apparently anything in front of Zilla equates to me or something like that.
And of course, lots of things to talk about today. We have our wondrous topics lined up for discussion, but before that, was there any WildStar news this week?
To be perfectly honest, I don't think there was, so I don't have any very specific WildStar music set up. So instead, what I'm going to do is go to Gazzy and let everybody see the gloriousness that is Gazzy, and I am going to Lopzilla beatbox your news entry.
This I've been waiting a long time for, apparently. Go ahead.
Now I'm all like, I can't do this. Boom, chicka chicka boom, chicka 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 boom, chicka 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 boom, chicka chicka chicka, pew 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 pew. Boom, chicka 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 chicka.
What did the lop say?
Pew pew pew. Okay, there's your news entry.
And follow that.
And welcome to
Okay.
Gazimoff News. Pew pew.
Maybe we can edit that out in post.
Or maybe we should leave it in.
So, number of different things happened in the week of WildStar. The big news, of course, is that the NDA has plummeted like a
Yes.
stone in the ocean. So we are all now free to talk about the NDA, or talk about WildStar rather. Everything that's happened, even post screenshots covered in watermarks if you have them. We can also reminisce about our time in beta from would you like to create that item? All the way through to other amusing issues with beta that we've all experienced. Apart from that, there's also been the news of the launch date as well. So 3rd of June is when we'll be able to get our hands on the boxes of WildStar. Interestingly enough, though, there is going to be no collector's edition. There will be a limited steelbook edition that's available to
Yay.
selected European retailers only. But in the main, you're going to be pulled between two either boxes or digital versions, the standard edition and the digital deluxe edition. And the deluxe edition comes with a load of Elden-themed accessories, so a hoverboard, a spangly title, some die kits, a costume as well, I think. But it's the pre-order bonuses that are really tempting. If you pre-order from March the 19th, you'll be able to get a rocket house. It's a rocket and a house. What more could you want? There are other bits and pieces to be had. I think there's a trophy, an Ark ship trophy for your house. I think there's some other bits and pieces thrown in as well. There's another title. So yeah, there's loads of bits and pieces that you can get from the pre-order and 3 days early access head start as well. So that's got to be worth it.
It's definitely got to be, and I want to throw this question directly at you. The Dist has asked, did Gazimoff just say it's okay to post screenshots taken during NDA, which still have the watermark?
According to Anlaf,
Yep.
yes, it is.
There's
So
your answer,
yeah, go ahead.
Dist.
Yeah, of course they will look ugly, and we do commiserate the fact that you've got pictures with watermarks.
I
But yes,
have
Anlaf has
watermark
confirmed.
pictures, so believe me, I understand. I'm all like, oh my god, this is awesome! Click, and then I look at it, I'm like, I really don't want to put that up because it's got watermark on it, but you know.
Yeah, and just to pick up on Suicide Zebra's comment, there is no collector's edition, except for this notarized edition, which collectors may enjoy for a limited time. Does that physical steelbook EU run not end up becoming by default the collector's edition just due to scarcity?
Well, I think it's going to be a difficult situation because obviously we'll probably want to pre-order to make sure that, that's the other thing. If you pre-order, you get access to beta weekends, unless you were already in the beta and you managed to get a character over level 32, in which case you'll get access anyway. If you didn't hit that level 32 mark, though, you can buy pre-order access and you'll get weekend access anyway.
There is a
Interestingly, though,
limit.
yes, the pre-order
17.
limit. Yes, you can only get up to level 17. I'm not sure how it works if you were previously in beta and then you pre-order, if you can go beyond that level 17 cap or not.
My understanding is you can, but there was a little confusion on that, so take that as a highly probable,
Yeah.
not as a set in stone.
Yes. So, but the key thing between now and launch is, for those beta weekends, is going to be intensive testing, particularly end game and elder game content. The earlier content is getting quite there. I don't know if you saw the patch notes for the patch that just went in the week, but there's a
Gazzy,
huge
would you
amount of
just like
content.
to discuss each line of the patch notes, please?
Yes,
No.
that's basically what we're going to be doing. Is we're going to be taking the time to go through every single patch note, and this show will not end until Sunday, just so that you know. And even by then, you're going to find yet again that the three of us are sitting there going, because we don't always agree with everything that is being done. But anyway.
So we're not going to do that. So, but there are some I think the most important part of the entire set of patch notes, all 27 pages of them, is the Chewer now have additional emote animations. That's the standout feature for me. Nothing else, not performance increases, not the balancing, not the new content. Oh no, there wasn't any new content.
I quite liked the line that said Chewers are now 15% more satisfying to kill.
No, see, that's the thing. When it comes to chewers, I've got a little story to tell. Okay.
Well, it's a chewer, of course it's little.
Oh.
I might be ill, but I could. Very hard to get below the belt with a chewer, trust me.
I believe it was Frost who pointed out that there is a bug in beta where the chewer are able to kill Dominion as well as... Hold on, I'll let you say your piece because I saw your response to it. You will get your chance, Gazi. But Frost is all, the chewer are able to kill the Dominion and the Exiles, and because of the fact that they opened up this latest closed beta patch, or this latest beta to be open world PvP. And it was just this little bug. But Gazi, go ahead. What are your thoughts on this? With the Chewer having this ability?
It wasn't Chewer characters, Chewer player characters. It was the Chewer guards that are posted around at various points would kill both Dominion and Exile players at any point. So it was guards, NPCs, would kill players. As far as I was concerned, that was completely working as intended. But they have since hotfixed it to fix it, which is a bit of a shame.
No more suicidal short furry maniacs running around then. Well, just the players.
Well, it was a bit disheartening. You'd go to Feral Plane Collective, which is the level 10-ish area in Derridum, and the Chewer guards would just kill you on sight. So
no, see, that's the thing. You specifically stated that it was working as intended. Surge King agrees it's working as intended, and yeah. And just so that you are aware, King Surge King, I have a feeling you are the one who sent us that one question. We will actually be tackling your question very specifically through today during one of our topics, but I do want to tackle Angelic Mayhem's because we are talking about the pre-order. And Angelic Mayhem asks, can an MMO with no legacy fan base, like Star Wars, Elder Scrolls, 20 plus years kind of a thing, sell at $60 a box, $15 a month, or is it too much for uninitiated players? Now, that's a really good question. Now, the question becomes, do we let Gazi directly tackle it, or do we let Mizpah do it so he can rest his voice?
Go, Gazi. I'll pop in afterwards.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll leave the screen on you, Gazi. It's all you.
All right. So, first of all, yes, they can quite easily sell a game at $60. That's pretty much the standard price over in the States. Interestingly, though, the conversion rates, if you're looking at either EU or UK prices, is quite favorable. Normally, that $60 would translate to €60 and £45. In Carbine's case, WildStar will be retailing at €45 or £35, which is a much more accurate conversion and makes it a much keener price for us the other side of the Atlantic. However, there is still the subscription. Carbine has a big challenge ahead of it to demonstrate that they are going to earn the subscription, either through cred or through paying for it every month. Now, how are they going to demonstrate that? By providing regular content updates. This was something that I talked to Mike Donatelli almost a year ago now, thinking about it at a press event. And yes, if he can demonstrate that they can pull off regular updates, and I'm talking almost kind of Guild Wars 2 frequency updates, and they're meaningful and heavyweight, yes, he will earn our $15 a month. If he falls into the WoW cycle of only patching once every 3 months, if that, then no. So that's my take on it.
I think that's one take, but at the end of the day, the game isn't going to be an unknown IP for very long. People are going to buy the game, they're going to get their hands on it, they're going to run around Nexus, Farside, and everywhere else, and they're going to form their own opinion. And at the end of the day, this is entertainment. If people are finding it fun, they're going to keep playing. And indeed, that's where the value is. As they get into Elder Game, as they look at the things there are to do, as people decide for themselves, is this fun, they're going to make their own mind up. I see no reason at all why the game with a new IP can't attract a decent base of players. The question then becomes how many stay. And that is actually fine, because that's down to the quality of the game itself. What it won't do is get 1 million people because it's IP1 or IP2. It does mean the game will live or die on its own merits. And actually, I'm okay with that. And personally, I think the studio should be okay with that as well.
I think the question more or less goes beyond just its viability and whether it's actually going to stick around, but is the pricing fair? And I think that is the key. In my personal opinion, if you're going to make, and this is it's challenging AAA titles because it is an unknown IP. It is challenging things. And if you want to play with the big boys, in my opinion, you kind of need to accept that there will be quote unquote big boy pricing involved. I believe, based on all of the playing that I have done, now I will be the first person to tell you fun is subjective. That it is. And anyone who sits there and puts this game down because it is not fun for you, I accept that, and that's great. But do understand that for other people, it can be fun for them. Certain aspects, etc. So remember, fun is subjective. But when it comes to everything that I have seen, I am actually incredibly impressed by what is being offered at the price it is being offered. So, I mean, for me, I really appreciate it, and I do believe that the choice that they've made for how much the quote-unquote box costs and then the subscription really works well. The addition of cred, however, totally throws things into a loop and shows that, hey, if you do have that extra time and that extra gold, you don't always have to pay your monthly subscription. You can just pay through cred. And that, I think, brings a whole nother dynamic to it. They're showing that they know the different development or the different subscription models and different payment models, etc. And honestly, if I want this game to survive, I believe it needs a subscription. How else is it going to pay for the developers to put the time in to create the assets, to create the plugs, to create the new upcoming events, etc.? When you start going free to play, while you can make money, if you do that kind of payment thing where it's the microtransactions, I honestly believe you're kind of sitting there with either a feast or famine situation. You're either going to get enough money to cover all the expenses one month, or the next you're going to be sitting there going, well, that didn't work out too well. We can't quite pay the same people, and that kind of a thing. So
it's not even from my perspective so much that a business can be run, can manage cash flow, they can work out how to deal with peaks and troughs. Business playing, hey, different show. However, the concept of microtransactions itself for non-cosmetics for me is always an issue, as we've said in the past, because you don't want the game design choices to end up being made in such a way as to create those microtransactions. And here, for the best part, they seem to have managed that balance. We'll see what happens in the big bad world once it gets released, once it's 3 months in. But the people saying this might or might not be good value, I just simply have one test. At whatever point you think this game is not giving you value for money, is not being fun for your dollar, shekel, euro, lemming, whatever you're using to pay in your local currency, just type /played. Look at the hours you've played. Do some quick math and work out what the cost is per hour sitting in your local cinema. At the point that you say that number is far more than the per hour in your local cinema, come back to me and tell me the game is bad value for entertainment. Then we can talk.
See, that's a good way to look at it, but yeah.
I think that the other problem is that you need to look at, okay, comparing like with like, do you get the same amount of value from WildStar as you get with other forms of video gaming? Now, you could be saying, okay, take for example this month, there's Titanfall, there's Infamous Second Son, there's Elder Scrolls Online coming up very, very shortly. There's a whole bunch of games.
Yeah,
if you like playing, if you like playing online RPGs, you could easily spend £100 a month, $150 a month on gaming. The question you've got to ask yourself is: would you rather be playing all of these different games and spending lots of dollars, or would you rather be spending on one game and getting the same amount of it or more value and enjoyment out of progression, development, and stuff like that.
Right.
That's the kind of thing we're talking about here. And that's where you've got to really weigh it up. Someone else I know recently asked, what about the date itself? Does the date make sense? That's a difficult question. It's 2 months after Elder Scrolls Online, so it's long enough for people to have bought the game, churned off, and be looking to pick up something else. And that's a fair approach, because Elder Scrolls Online is lore heavy. For the amount of people who are looking for a kind of Skyrim replacement, I can see a lot of people buying into it purely on the Elder Scrolls name.
I just want to quickly interrupt you and say, hi, Cadium. Welcome to Cosmotronic. Go ahead.
So I think that people will potentially buy into it
Mm-hmm.
and then churn off after a month. I'll be honest, that's my kind of plan. If I do go and buy the box, then that will be what I do. And so in terms of having space on that end, I think that it's canny and it's almost kind of respectful. It's saying, we're not going to kind of trump your release. We're going to give you space to kind of show what you're at, and then if people don't want you, then they've got us.
Yeah.
And that's
There was
cool.
a very good post by Scooter, which actually talked about some of the reasons for all the discussion about the plan between now and launch, and of course the launch date factors into that as well.
Yeah.
It may be worthwhile tracking down a link. I don't yet know, I don't know if anyone here can tell me what's going to happen with regards to people's forward access to beta content, whether that's going to remain hidden away under NDA or whether that stuff's going to be more public. So we shall endeavour to find that one out, unless anyone knows.
Are you asking about, like, ArcShip? Or...
No, not ArcShip. That's a separate agreement. I'm asking.
I'm trying to figure out.
I'm asking about linking people to content in the existing Secret Squirrel forums.
Oh, right. Secret Squirrel.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't know about that. That's a good question.
That is a very good
So
question.
the other kind of questions that crop up in terms of the release date is it's right at the start of summer and people like
Yes.
going outside. So but it is also right after exams have finished for a lot of people, particularly US college more than UK and EU college. So that could have an interesting effect as well. People want to get those out of the way before they start immersing themselves in the world. And then there's this whole question of, well, what happens when Destiny comes out, or when World of Warcraft comes out, or the Warlords of Draenor? And my whole kind of reaction to that is, yes, I do have behind me on the shelf loads and loads of Warcraft expansions, all the collector's editions. I even have a server, one of the old Blades, on right behind me here.
Mm.
But the combat is so old and so dated, and it's like chunk, 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 boring. It's like, will I go back to that? Maybe to have a bit of a tourist session around the old Draenor bits, but that's about it.
Well, see, the other way to look at it, besides that, is when you plan a launch, it makes no difference when you're planning the launch. There's always going to be something else coming out. I mean, we live in a world, in particular if you're a gamer, where there are games being released weekly, daily even, if you follow the independent developers and things like that. Is there ever going to be a quote-unquote right time? I think the only answer to that is when a studio is prepped and ready. If the studio is prepped and ready, it doesn't make a difference whether it's February, March, leap year, or the day after my aunt's birthday because her cat just decided, to dance or something. It makes no difference when it is. The studio itself needs to be ready for it. The game needs to be ready for it. And I think that kind of formula, I think that's existing right now within where we're at within the beta.
One thing that's really worth pointing out to people as well, the release cycle that the developers go through, unless someone chimes in and tells me differently, usually they're a couple of builds ahead internally to what we're actually seeing on the beta servers.
Which is why you don't see that nifty new UI, which I am still like ripping my eyeballs out going, want to play with it. But yes.
So we've already just seen this particular patch. We've seen what was a 98-page Word document distilled into patch notes. Yet there could be 2 more patches like that we're not aware of yet. So, they've got to feel they're ready, or they're not going to have gone down this line. We've got to take it with a grain of salt and go, we are still playing beta. Just because they said we've got a date that we're launching does not mean we're playing the final release. And I do hope people can still understand me while I'm doing this. But, the studio have to feel they're ready. They've come up with a date.
Mm-hmm.
They obviously do. They're not going to sacrifice years of work just on a whim. I know, I feel like launching today.
Yeah.
I really don't think that one's going to happen. So it's looking pretty good.
Yeah, definitely looking pretty good. There was one thing that Jeremy Gaffney said, and he said it about 3 or 4 times, and that is the easiest way to torch 100 million, 200 million, whatever dollars, is to release an MMO when it's not ready, when it hasn't got sufficient elder game content, I think was the particular thing that he was referring to. But essentially, when it's not ready for release. And I don't think he would do that. I think that I really kind of feel for the guys at Carbine, because they are going to be working hard on getting everything polished and ready. And this is going to be a tough time for them, so make no mistake about it. But
the milestone crunch is on.
Yeah, exactly.
But yes, and KDM did point out they are a wee bit ahead of beta internally on a hardcore level, just a wee bit. When I hear wee bit, I'm thinking like, we're probably like 10, 20 releases behind what, they're actually saying. But what I want to do is I want to make certain we move through some further topics.
Just going to say, it's time to dig into some of those lovely show notes we prepared earlier.
Worked really hard on these.
I know. We're now going to deal with them. Okay, so let's start with. Should we leave question 1 till last? Because it's probably the most open-ended of them.
It is the most open-ended, yes.
Okay, I'm going to dive into the NDA lift. So I'm not sure where this question comes from.
Oh, I can present it to you if you want.
Go. Let's go, Gadget. Question about NDA lift.
Okay, Lobzilla takes the floor. Here's the deal. The NDA lift occurred on the same time that they released Pre-Order. They removed the watermarks from everyone's screen who is currently in beta and basically said, go forth and multiply my lovely gremlins. Stream it if you want. Post whatever you want. Tell everybody about everything that's going on in the current beta. Now, that's the key thing here, because there are certain pieces that are not in beta yet, so obviously you can't talk about them. But yes, so go forth, discuss, share. Now, I have seen 3 different reactions to this. The very first reaction I've seen is, great, now I can share it with all my friends. I can finally let people see what's going on. They can see what's happening. I've seen they shouldn't do that until it's open beta. NDA should not be lifted until open beta is going on, because it's an unfair advantage to people who stream, who have access to beta, and those who are streamers but can't actually share it because they don't have access to beta. So it's an unfair advantage there. And then I've also heard the people who just said, who cares? It's just more information. So I've seen an apathetic side, I've seen a very strong pro side, and I've seen a very strong anti side. And the reason why this particular question is brought up is because just simply lifting the NDA, the cork is gone. You can discuss literally everything now. We can talk about the ship hand, where I ran the ship hand with 2 guild members, and we had a Dominion join us in the ship hand, and we were exile. And it was rather complicated, but we got it through it, and I've got a screenshot to prove it, although I think it was watermarked at the time. But, still, we can talk about these things. But yeah, I mean, everyone's got their opinion on it. So was it the right timing? Was it not the right timing? I guess is a really good question. I
You're
see
looking
faces.
Gazimoff, and I don't think it was the prune sandwich you had for lunch.
Oh,
so
yes.
I'm going to do my usual. There are 2 sides to this thing, which apparently.
Does anyone have a fence here that Gazimoff can sit on? He's looking a little uncomfortable on that chair.
Personally, I think that lifting the NDA is a good thing, because particularly for people like myself who write about WildStar, because it gives us much more freedom to talk about almost anything that we could possibly want to that's in the game. We can share how it interests, how it either makes us smile or raises our ire. One of those 2 things, and which is a good thing. Unfortunately, for a lot of people, it's a case of, let's document everything I don't like about this game in terms of the poor frame rate performance, because the engine hasn't been optimized yet, the issues that they've had with questing, because hey, it's rough content and it hasn't been polished yet, the things that they find or take umbrance with from any one of a list of things. And this might be things that they encountered back in the summer beta, way back when, and haven't bothered to return to checkout since. And they find that they can now just air a laundry list of issues and say, you know what, this is what I think about WildStar from playing it umpteen million years ago when I was first in beta, and I won't be buying it because of this. And it's like, well, yeah, you gave that a really fair and you put fair opinion and put a lot of perspective on it. Nah.
Well,
And
see,
unfortunately, there's a lot of kind of negativity around that because people like say, rah, 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 rah.
no, see, this is the thing. I'm going to slightly slide in here and say we do have an episode of our Mondays analytical show on MMO Buff coming up where we are actually going to be tackling how to look at reviews from people, because how do you properly pick apart a review on a game or something else like that. And I'm also going to be bringing in some psychology that has been done in the background on the gamers, etc., to discuss that, but that's sort of beside the point. On top of things, my frustration, and I see where you're coming with it. This is why in last week's Cosmotronic, which will be up very soon on YouTube, by the way, guys, I do apologize. Me being sick this past week has thrown the poor studios into a tornado of vortexy craziness. But
Not only sharing that sickness, love. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. But, this is why I discussed with you. You've been playing WildStar for over a year now. You've seen its evolution. You've seen its changes. I've been involved in the beta for a while now. Now, obviously, I haven't been able to put as much time in it as I want because, work does take precedence, etc. But I've seen the difference between one beta patch and the next. I've seen the impact that it has, and I've seen the evolution. I've yet to find a situation where I sit there shaking my head going, why are they making this choice? I've sat there going, it's interesting that they're going this direction. I wonder if they're going to keep it in the next patch because, sometimes they're making modifications to classes and their particular abilities, etc. I mean, we had a brilliant question come in to us through Twitter where someone was asking about 2 different medic abilities, and Aiko took care of that because as our use reporter on MMOBuff, he and also a huge medic fan who has a level 50 medic, I'm like, you get to tackle that question. But yes. So, some people just want to complain, and
Yeah, so some people just want to complain, and some people kind of tend to complain. And this isn't particularly journalists or anything like that. And when you're doing previews as a journalist, you tend to give a game a certain amount of slack depending on how close you are to that release date. If, for example, the game is 2 weeks away from release and you haven't got any content beyond level 20, then you kind of start raising questions. Age of Conan.
A really good first 20 levels, though.
So, but there's that kind of issue. Whereas and this is the thing with WildStar, there are the core systems are all in place and they're all good fun, particularly the combat and so on, and everything that wraps around that. The trading systems are all present and they all have depth to them. There are some questing flow issues which are being worked on, and well, guess what? People keep on flooding bug reports in about, well, I'm having this issue, and if you and that's all good stuff, But to say, well, it only runs on 10 FPS on my PC, and I'm not buying it as a result. It's like, wait, come on.
Well,
have we lost a Mizpah?
You haven't quite lost him, but he needs to just disappear off screen for a couple of seconds.
Okay.
And I want to just quickly address Hudson here, who has been asking questions, and it's a lot easier for me to just quickly state it than to actually type it. MMOBuff is not affiliated with any guild. It is something completely separate. Every single member and all the volunteers, and I think at the latest count I'm up to 19 people who are working behind the scenes to make MMOBuff everything it is, are a part of many different guilds, many different countries, many different types of things. So just so that you are aware, MMOBuff is not affiliated with any guild. It is just MMOBuff. It just so happens that people who are in MMOBuff are in various other guilds. Just so that you are aware. But yes, in my personal opinion, when it comes to this NDA lift, I am on the fence, drawing us back in. I'm in the fence because I'm like, yes, I now get to share it with everybody. But I can also empathically sit on the other side of the fence and go, well, what if I'm a student and right now I'm paying my student bills off and I can't afford to get the pre-order to get into the beta? I am basically sitting there waiting to be drip fed whatever streamers or reporters want to bring to me. I can't actually go test it out for myself to see if I like it. Granted, open beta is coming, but I don't know. I can kind of see the different sides of the story. But
Yeah.
in the end,
And
go ahead.
don't forget as well that there will still be beta key giveaways as well that are happening
Yeah.
between now and then. So even if you can't get in, you might get lucky. So
Are you pleased with the fact that it's going to weekend only? I have such a huge opinion on this. I so want to jump. I want to see if I agree with the Gazi or if he and I are again fighting.
well, should we let Miz tackle this one first?
I don't know,
since
can
it's
you
just-
talk
Let me
yet?
throw something in. I can talk. No one might be able to understand me, but I can ramble incoherently with the best of them.
Please don't filibuster.
Um, it's a mixed blessing. I mean, part of the rationale for it was in Scooter's post that Jared R linked earlier.
Mm-hmm.
If everything is too open book, then some people, frankly, they'll go, well, I've seen everything. Where's the stuff I haven't seen? Why am I going to buy and play? There's got to be some surprises. There's got to be some secrets for, the bulk of the players that are out there. Those bits that are in beta, well, that's the lumps we get to take. We don't get those nice surprises, but they're good to have them there. You want people to be able to get their hands on it to know it's for real. You want people to be able to play it to know that it is actually as good as it looks, or not in their case. But people need to get their hands on and make their own mind up. What you don't want, and I mean no one any direct offense when I say this, you don't want freeloaders Inc. arriving en masse and going, hey, a game I can play for 3 months, with no intention of ever playing it. That would be bad. That makes a mockery of the hard work of the studio. So I think the weekend idea from that perspective is a good one. Of course, it raises the questions about things that maybe haven't seen the amount of testing that some have. And to that, there's another very simple answer. What you see happening in beta, of course, isn't everything. There are internal studio test teams. There are other things going on. So just because someone in beta hasn't run around and pushed this button 30,000 times, doesn't mean they haven't got a robot arm there somewhere pushing it 30,000 times behind the scenes.
Well, see, I can easily throw out here, when it comes to pushing button, getting bacon kind of a thing, it's a phrase that I love from Gazimoff. You can't expect that with WildStar. I went in and I did a ship hand mission and got a completely different boss at the end than the first time I did a ship hand mission, and I've done it twice now. First time with 2 people, second time with 3 people. I cannot tell you if this means that in a ship hand, if I bring 4 people, I'll get a different boss, and 5 people, I'll get a different boss, or whether it's just random each time. I haven't put the testing into it. But just because what you're seeing occur once doesn't mean it's always going to occur when it comes to WildStar. There is an awful lot of variety that keeps it fresh. Now, I am going to throw out there, and this is my opinion on it, I appreciate the fact that it's going weekend only. You have so many people who, fingers crossed, are interested enough to jump in to this beta or just to pre-order and be excited about it. And just for your own, to answer your question, Angelic Mayhem, open beta is 1 month before the game goes live.
But it consists, I believe, of those weekends.
Yes, it is still
for those
weekend
people.
only, but it starts 1 month before it goes live. So it is different than the beta that you get into with pre-order kind of a thing to start. Now, the way I look at it is we have so many new people coming in. Not everyone is going to sit there and actually take the time to fill out all of the beta questionnaires that come your way. Because, again, one of the things we've discussed is when you have weekend only, you want to consume as fast as you possibly can. You want to see the content you want to do. Don't necessarily agree with that, but it's a matter of personal play style, etc. So we have all these people who are going to be coming in. Let's just say that humanity has decided to become awesome and everybody fills in these tickets. Everybody finds a new bug and actually reports every bug that they run across, be it a random meteorite stuck underground or, something along those lines. Let's just assume everybody does it. That's a whole lot of feedback that needs to be gone through by the team for each week. And I kind of appreciate the fact that they have a week when the servers are down. They don't have to, even worry about the servers running. They can just put the entire development team into nothing but, all right, let's squash the bugs. Let's see why this keeps occurring. Let's make certain that we fix this. We haven't got this tweak just right. Let's make certain it's tweaked. Like we said, we know we're behind the curve in the betas that they've got going on inside Carbine.
Mm-hmm.
So do we agree, Gazi,
things.
or are we fighting again?
Right.
Is it two things again? It's always two things with you.
I do agree with you that if they said, okay, let's give everyone 30 days of full beta time before we launch, would be a stupid idea. And here's why. Because people would freeload. They'd go, right, I will get to level cap, I will play the game. It might be a bit ropey, a bit buggy, and I will say, hey, it's ropey, it's buggy, I'm not going to buy this, and churn off, and won't even pick up a box copy. That would be a bit stupid of Carbine to do. Yeah, so I completely agree with them doing weekend open betas that are level capped to level 17. That's long enough for you to get a taste of whether you like the game or not, whether it's your cup of tea, to use a British phrase, whether it's your bag.
It's also a really smart level cap, just as a point, in that as the characters open out when you start to level them, 15 to 17 is really where you start to get a sense of each individual character.
Yeah.
So that actually is quite smart.
I will tell people, use the time to figure out which path works best for you.
Yes, exactly.
Seriously.
So that's fine in terms of what they're planning to do there. However, there is a caveat here. And that is, I want to make sure that the Elder game content works. There is nothing that's going to be worse than the game goes live, people level up to cap, and yeah, I reckon that if you dedicated a week of your life to it, you could hit level cap quite comfortably. Book time off work, take a holiday, march up to level cap. Yeah, but what if the content isn't there for you to enjoy once you hit level cap? What if the questing isn't there? What if the continuing storyline isn't there? What if the raids are terrible? What if the war plots are terrible? Now, yes, we've had a little bit of information now on press events where they've been playing war plots and raids, and hopefully we'll find out a bit more about that. But if they don't work for the average Joe, then even if the average Joe has been playing raids since he was fresh out of nappies, then this is not
some raider you have there, Gav.
I was about to say, did you start them out as a gold farmer to start?
Well, this is the thing. World of Warcraft had raids, and it's been out for 10 years now. Before that, EverQuest had raids, and that's been out for 4 or 5 years before that. So you could quite easily have someone who is now just about to start college and was fresh out of nappies when raiding started. So, yeah, actually, I had a point.
Okay, fine. We'll let you have it.
Hold the front page. Gazimoff has a point.
Silly Chua. But yes.
Silly Chua that was right.
Okay.
Now,
Let's stop talking about the concept of a right chewer, because that just goes against the grain. We can't be doing that here on MMOBuff.
Yes, and before we move into regions, I just want to point out one thing. Angelic Mayhem pointed out, I thought I knew the game, then I hit 15 and everything changed. This is incredibly true. If you think you know Espers, you don't until you've reached at least a minimum, I think it is, of 14 or 15, I can't remember off the top of my head. Their entire gameplay changes. Completely changes.
However, you can introduce that at different levels for different classes and more than once.
Yes, exactly.
There's one thing that I just want to really kind of dive in on this. One thing, anecdotal thing that cropped up. I normally play an engineer in WildStar, and I tried playing someone else's Esper. It was like, I have no idea what I'm doing here. And I died horribly. But then it's like, and I was like, how do you do this? What kind of sorcery is this?
It's Esperation.
Go on, take us into regions. You know you want to, Mizpah.
Well, I continue to do medicinal things to my throat. Regions. Of course, we now know that we're going to have a NA and an EU region. There's been some
Yes.
speculation before now as to whether or not that would actually be the case, and people are asking, is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? Is this an irrelevant thing? I, of course, have my views, but I shall hold those back for a moment, and let's go to a Pseudo, because I know you have a little bit of a vested interest in this one. Regions, NA, EU, good or bad?
First off, where's the oceanic ones? Just wondering. You know, I understand the desire to split regioning. You have your servers in a different location. The servers are run by a different company that is going to take care of the back end of things, who's going to handle the network. I can understand the need to separate in order to ensure that the people in the EU have the millisecond pings that they're after versus, the people in the United States. And, if one of those great chunks underneath the ocean that connects us all together goes down, people won't freak out because they can't make their raid or their war plot or play the game, what have you. I get this. But I am slightly frustrated by the fact that I can't sit there and in a drop-down menu simply state, I'm now going to play in North America with my friends and family in the United States. Because I live in the United Kingdom and I am American. If I want to do that, I need to buy another box and I need to pay another subscription. It kind of rubs me wrong. I get it, but it frustrates me because I would think that in today's day and age, the ability to just pick EU server from a drop-down after you have purchased the game and you're still paying your subscription, you should be allowed to pick who you want to play with. I mean, we're a global community. I don't want to get too harsh on it because that's a topic that we'll be discussing in a future show where we have the, pawn seems to separate gamers. And, a lot of European gamers feel second class because of how they're treated. I will take my hat off to Carbine because the Steelbox is available only from select EU vendors, which is kind of crazy.
And that makes me chuckle. First time I've seen it that way round in memory.
Yes, see, that's the
Have
thing.
Have you seen the amount of people on Twitter that are now going, so Gaz, are you going to set up like an underground ferry route for
Steelbox repository?
Now, I will state, because of the fact that a lot of my American friends are moving into EU stuff, the conversion rate to purchase the EU thing is going to hit them very hard because of how the dollar reflects versus the euro. I get this. I understand this. But I will still, time permitting, money permitting, buy an American one as well, so that when the time comes and I have American friends who want to play with me but can't play the EU one, I can still occasionally go play with them. So, I mean, I hope and I doubt what's going to happen is, I'm in a circle because we're on different servers and they've talked about how servers or how circles will be allowing people from different servers to, say, instance together, etc. It's just...
So
there's a
what would
slight
a good middle?
frustration
What
there.
would a good middle ground be?
Well,
Because as we know, the devs are listening because they've just reminded us in our channel.
Oh,
Gazimoff,
yes, I
your
forgot
take on
Cadian was
regions.
even here. Hi, Cadian.
Okay, so there are two problems here, and one of them is a financial problem, and one of them is a technical problem. Okay, so with the aspect of cred, where you can buy a subscription, 1 month subscription for real money and put it on the auction house, how do you protect the integrity of that cred and stop things like money laundering and so on? Because it's quite easy for people to say, okay, where's the currency cheapest at the moment in terms of the creds to unit of currency ratio? Buy a cred using that, put it onto the account and then ship it over. So there's all that kind of issue, and it is a real problem that EVE Online has to deal with when dealing with Plex. They have to take kind of precautions about where people buy Plex and what kind of market they are and how they're priced and all those kind of things. And it's not an easy thing for them. And they've got really highly qualified economists focusing on this kind of thing. So for Carbine, they probably just said, no, let's keep this simple. Let's keep it straightforward and say, that's it. So, however, so that's the financial kind of thing. There is also a technical consideration as well, where you've got to say, okay, America probably encompasses both the American players and the Australian players as well. And if they I think if they probably get enough Australian players, they would have a serious look at setting up some Australian servers.
I believe that has been said in the past, yes.
So, but while our connection to the servers might be fine, bearing in mind we are right on the west coast of Europe here, so the distances are very small. Someone on the east coast of Europe, or the eastern edge of Europe, or Russia considerably, would have a much worse deal trying to connect to an American server. So you've got to say, okay, where do we draw the line? And it's usually straight through the Atlantic Ocean. So I can understand that.
So how could they resolve it?
Well, this is the thing. You've got two options. You either say, okay, you can buy one box, but you might have to maintain 2 subscriptions, or you buy one box and play 1 subscription, but you have your main region and possibly a guesting region, all that kind of stuff. But I think it would be the first thing is, if you buy cred, you can only sell cred on European servers. I think that, or the server, the region that you bought the cred on.
Well, see, you've basically brought up one of the key things that I think people forget about when it comes down to regioning. I mean, by design and by choice, Carbine have added cred to a potential method of paying for your monthly subscription. It adds a whole nother level, like you said, of security. It adds a whole nother level of how do we prevent people from using the market to farm certain things. I mean, that's a very difficult thing to go through. Now, one easy way to kind of fix it is, like you said, just say this cred is EU only, this cred is US only. I still kind of would love to have that little drop down box where I just say the server I want is EU Nexus, EU Lopzilla, EU Chewabot, or what have you, versus US. I'd still like to have that.
Here's the issue with that slightly. I'm not saying it can't be worked around.
Oh no.
But a lot of people are going to pick up the game and go autopilot. We know that's just what people do in the main.
Oh,
so they're going to hit that drop down, log in, and there will be people that say, well, I'm logged in, my ping times are rubbish, my MS is poor, I'm being killed, and I don't want to be, ugh, this game is horrible. And they're not going to go through the mental loop that makes them say, well, actually, I chose to put myself in this environment. So to me, they could do a multi-region, but it would take some design and a few extra hoops. I would be okay with something that logs you in by default to the region that you purchased the box. You then go on to some form of web portal to go, hey, I want to switch this around. And you unlock a couple of character slots on the alternate region. You then, after you've done that, have the option to go to that character select screen and run up those entirely separate characters. But, for the sake of sanity, you don't cross-pollinate between the 2 sets of character accounts. Therefore, you're keeping some integrity in terms of cred or other bits and pieces like that. How easy, of course, that is to do. There'll be but I've got my epic mount of Uber, and I want it on my other character, and it was account bound, so why can't I have it? There's always going to be wrinkles. The question is simply this. For the number of players affected, are those hoops and wrinkles and things that need to be done to make it sane actually viable or not? And if you're one of the players in that Venn diagram, the answer is, of course, yes. But if you look at it from a work perspective, and then ask the question, how many people are in that spot in the Venn diagram? That's another question.
Yeah. I've got to be honest with you. I don't think it's going to be an easy one to fix. And looking at it with how, and even League of Legends has splits between EU and US. But and of course there was a wrinkle there in that, yes, the game was free to play, but hey, if you buy, you have either a EU account or a US account. You don't have one account for everything, and that's again to deal with the same kind of issue. And also it's trying to direct people to servers where they get the optimum play experience. And bearing in mind that PvP in WildStar is a bit of a twitchy experience, and you've got to be fairly sharp and on your toes. I think trying to get someone who's dealing with 300, 400 milliseconds ping because they're on the eastern edge of Europe, playing, it's kind of like, yeah, it's kind of the Mizpah thing where you say, no, you stay here. But there you go.
Okay, folks, we're going to wrap it up. So we've got one more question to do in not a lot of minutes. There's some great questions in the chat. Let's do those in the post show.
Okay.
If my voice works, I think it just about does.
Yeah, for those of you who actually have questions for us, it's difficult for us to capture everything right now because of the depth to which we're taking these things. Do me a favor, put a Q and a colon and throw the question in. It makes a difference whether you are asking us about how many character slots are currently available, which I can tell you right now. So far that we know, you can have like one of every class, but we don't know what the final thing is going to be because it hasn't exactly been stated yet. But if you throw your question in there, when we come back from the post show, we will tackle the questions. Yes.
Before we go to the post show, however, we
Yes.
have one more question to deal with. Pseudo, would you like to introduce it?
Yeah, I definitely will. I want to take my hat off to King Surge, who got into a huge conversation with me on YouTube about challenge in WildStar. Now, one of the things you hear us talk a lot about is the gameplay style is challenging. I mean, you've got your action gameplay, you've got to dodge, you've got to double jump, you need to make certain that you get your interrupts off on time so that you don't end up dying to some of the weirdest telegraphs I have ever seen. Why? Why make a telegraph that makes the telegraph look like a moose with antlers that come out in weird directions at weird times?
Why not?
So frustrating. But, we talk about the challenging gameplay, and King Surge came up with an interesting concept. He was asking, he pointed out, I like what I hear about the level of challenge that comes in WildStar. I've always found that when combat feels too easy, I purposely challenge myself by either pulling more mobs, or group boss, or trying to solo a group boss. I can die many times, but I really like the challenge. He then says, imagine if bosses could become adaptive to your gameplay. Now, one of the things that we know not very much about is raiding. And I know there's a lot of people speculating about stuff like that, but he's come up with an interesting idea. Here it is. So imagine if your boss becomes adaptive to you. You try to outgear the instance. The boss then does more damage based upon your eye level. You try to stack DPS to burn down the ads. Then now the ads take 98% less damage and need to be healed in order to be killed. Now, try to taunt kite with a non-tank spec. The taunt now gives the boss a faster enrage timer. Think you can just autopilot your way through a boss? The boss now forces you to solve a calculus problem. I love this concept of a boss and making you do calculus. I do. He says, I guess
Quickly,
the balance
logarithmic tables to the front.
Yes. P1.
There was a saying that I used to have, and it's like, no, not for crap, but more vulgar than that.
But
I don't.
It basically comes down to, we're dealing with WildStar. WildStar, as we know, to me, I think you can't quite go completely adaptive because, you're talking about AIs and things like that, and that gets into a whole other can of worms. But I do like the fact that it does seem like the developers have put their heads on and gone, people will do this, so therefore we will make content that applies to it. I will always go back to the example of the squirg that I ran across, and I had to pick the squirg up and bring it back so that it could be examined. I couldn't get it off my head, and it kept on disorienting me. It frustrated the heck out of me. So I said, fine, I'm just going to shoot them. Shot them, and I got a challenge started up because obviously someone's going to get frustrated and shoot them. So they thought ahead and knew that someone's going to do this, so here's a challenge for it. So I do the challenge and things like that. And then I'm like, fine, I got this done. Now I'm okay with this. Bloody squirgs. I'll kill them every chance I get. Next thing I know, I've got a squirg asking me to help out. Because he thinks that my enemies have great brains to be consumed. So I'm like, here I am hating on squirgs, and now all of a sudden I've got to help a squirg out. I'm like, this kind of gameplay, this kind of cycle, if they seem to have thought of how everything, someone's going to sit there and go, I am going to try this. I'm going to do this. And they seem to have something in place for it. So I'm willing to bet that when it comes to rating, when it comes to bosses, we're going to see some things that might terrify the heck out of us because the developers tend to be, how do I put this?
Yes.
So,
Tricky?
Gaz the tricky. Adaptive bosses,
Hold
yes
on
or
one
no?
second, and we'll go one more into this. Gaz the tricky? Go ahead.
So, adaptive bosses, I would say for the moment, no. If you've got something that can learn every single move of yours and adapt to it, anticipate it, then you develop a challenge that's not designed to be even. It's far more of a challenge than something that you would want to tackle in a 1 hour, 5 hour, or 10-hour period. You're getting to the stage of, okay, let's build a supercomputer that can calculate all of the future moves of a particular chessboard, like Winston, isn't it? The
Deep Blue.
Deep Blue, yeah. Deep Blue is the computer that IBM built to doing chess, and that's the kind of level that you get to. I think you can do an approximation of that by tearing out a lot of the detail. Is it worth it? Will people recognize that there is that adaptability there, or do you just put in some kind of randomness and chaosicity in order for the boss to appear as if it's adapting to your behavior, but actually no, it's just picking random elements from a list depending on the input that it's getting? So you see, you can simulate an awful lot. Is it a good idea? Well, I don't know, to be honest. I think it's one of those things where you just chuck it into a boss and see what happens.
Well, see, that's the thing. Something like that would actually require design time in order to implement the back end through some kind of programmatical coding in order to make it a viable option. I mean, as one of the things we discussed about with WildStar, one of the cool things about world events is that they can occur because the entire world is plug. Everything you see in WildStar when you are running around an open world, wherever, it is a plug, which means you can change the world very, very easily. They've built that into the design principles. I think if you wanted to have adaptive bosses, you'd need to have that foundation built in. I don't think it is for WildStar.
Well, let's look at what the issue might be with adaptive boss. If you put it into a normal rating, first of all, the idea is fun. Let's just state, though, if Carbine could actually build something that would pass a Turing test, they're in the wrong business. I hate to say it, but that is actually true.
Okay, I'm going to give you that there. And for those who don't know what the Turing test is, it's a test that has been written to give to a computer program to see if it has actually developed intelligent, self-aware life.
So, sentient bosses, maybe not. But if something adaptive, something that simulates those reactions, it could be fun, but where would you put it? Players, as someone pointed out in the chat right now, like to stack the deck. So a boss that recognizes that also has a flaw. And the flaw is you could work out how to stack your boss to look weak to find a scenario to beat the boss more easily. It would lead to more metagaming, perhaps, than you'd want in a raid environment. I wouldn't want to see that boss as anywhere near any form of raid progression, because it will totally skew the listing as you go from boss 1 through to boss 10 via all the others. What could be fun, total random idea, is take this idea of a semi-adaptive boss, make it open world, give everyone a stat where it shows for their character how many times they've killed it, and let you check in that stat for something cosmetic later on down the line. Have a bit of fun with it. You take the linear progression side out of it, and you allow yourself to keep killing this thing that maybe gets harder for you each time you kill it.
And KDM does point out, I would like to point out, and this is KDM speaking, not me, just so that you know, it's just written in first person, sorry. But KDM does say, I would like to point out designers have been able to do things like target healers and kill them for years. We just don't do it because that's hardly fun. It is true. There is something to be said. Now, that's the thing. If you're dealing with a Holy Trinity game, yes, the healers are going to be, without a shadow of a doubt, the reason why some long boss is going to be viable, because you have the ability to keep everyone's life cycle going, blah, blah, blah. And there have actually been games where they have decided, fine, we'll have them target the healers because that makes the most sense. Then it throws the entire game off, because then people are like, well, we need to protect our healers. The healers themselves need to have some kind of tanking ability, and then throw them into PvP, and you just can't kill them because they are now tanks and healers. Look at clerics and one of those games, and I can't remember what it's called right now, right off the top of my head, but there you go. It does introduce a whole nother set of problems. That kind of adaptive play, yeah, I get that. I kind of like the idea of buffs, debuffs, and things like that occurring in an open world environment. However, I love puzzles, I love things that make me think, which is why I love the scientists. Finding out that there was this thing where I had to pick, certain color, things to go into this one line, like mastermind is, and you could told how many you got correct and how many you don't have correct. I basically like screamed so loud. I was so excited to find that as a scientist. I was like, oh my God, the puzzles. But anyway, forcing me to do calculus, I still think would be hysterical. Just
Okay, so final take, Pseudo. Some form of
Yes.
adaptive boss somewhere. Good idea, yes or
open
no?
world. Open world, bring it on. Seriously.
Gazzy.
I would say possibly small group, open world, but that's about it.
Yep, and I'm actually going to be on the same page. Put it in the right place, put it in a limited context, could be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
There's big downsides to putting it into the traditional raiding game and other bits and pieces.
One
But-
thing
Oh, go, Gazzy.
I was going to say, news just in.
He was just in.
News.
Do we
literally
need another
just in.
lop? Do we need another lop
No,
introduction
no,
here?
no, we do not need another.
Are you sure?
introduction
Are you
because-
sure?
Yeah,
Because
What
I-
did the
I-
lop say?
So yes, news just in, and they have been talking about this in chat, and there is official confirmation. If you go to the NC Soft page where they're talking about packs, which is just there,
The
I've
plush.
just linked in chat.
I need to go here.
They are going to be offering WildStar plushies at PAX East for the princely sum of $18 plus tax.
Somebody reserve me one now. I'm on the way.
Bring your credit or debit card with you and make sure you get in there, because I have a horrible feeling that these are going to sell out quickly. And if anyone is going to PAX and can get me one, I will be eternally in your debt. So think about that one.
I currently have all of my social media going crazy. I already have 74 requests for a PAX plushie.
I would love to see one as well, but I'm going to let everybody else who doesn't have something like what I've got here, which is a John Weissman Rousdower and the other Rousdower that I have, get them. So I'm going to let others get them because I have.
What I am
have
going to
my own.
say is if I can get any extras, I'll be buying them and bringing them back as prizes for the show.
Oh gosh,
But I will try and get
That
you
would be
one as well,
wonderful.
Gazzy.
That's the
Thank
thing.
you.
If you get one for me and my name, you know how Lobzilla is.
Yeah.
Lobzilla doesn't hold on to anything. She likes to share all the loots. So bring it, and I will give it out as gifts, prizes.
Okay, on that point, it's time to do a wrap up and go to a post show, I do believe.
Yes, and answer the questions that people had that we haven't had a chance to answer yet.
Indeed. So I'm going to rest my voice for a moment and stop bubbling into the microphone. Pseudo, take it away.
You want me to beatbox?
No.
Oh.
No. In fact, no. Let's change things around. Gazimoff, why don't you do our goodbyes?
But okay, so thank you all for watching Cosmotronic, episode 17. We have been running for 17 episodes. Good grief. If you'd like us, hit the follow button, hit the subscribe button on YouTube, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, all of the various different places you can find us. Let's hear a goodbye from the Mizpah
Goodbye.
From
and a toodle pip from the Lopzilla.
Lobzilla says toodle pip.
And it's goodbye from me. Goodbye. Run the music.
Now he wants me to play the music. Great. We'll be right back after these few messages.